Okay, straight into it today. Got a lot to do, so this will just be a quick one. This is Rangadad. This is not financial advice. This is just the way that I'm looking at the market. Basically, not a lot has changed apart from Bitcoin market didn't seem to like the Fed speech, like the Jerome Powell's talk. It kind of chopped around for a little bit and then just dropped off. So I think this here was basically when it was going on. Bit bouncy, bounced off the 800 EMA on the 5 minute a couple of times and then just shot to the downside. Interesting bounce at the bottom here. Now, 64,500, I wouldn't have really picked that as a key support level. There was a bit of action around there over here. Obviously, a pretty decent sort of W bounce. Most of the imbalances in this candle have been picked up, but given how close we are to here, that candle concerns me a little bit. Down to that 63,400. I think I've got an order sitting in there in case we get to it, which we could do. Get into that in a second. And then we've still got 63,600. And then potentially, I would expect if it goes much further than that, we're talking 61,500. Then back into some of these, maybe 60K to 59. Then potentially all the way down to the 58,227. I would expect that to be a fair level of support, though. There's not a lot below that. Yeah, there's not a lot of, I guess, imbalances in the market below that. If we get that low, I'll be surprised if we get there without some sort of bouncing. But yeah, that I kind of expected, based on this little bit of coiling here, that we'd be going up a little bit further than this already, but it's looking reasonably strong. And the fact that we are coming back and retesting this level, what you're looking for now is basically, for the bullish side, if you want to be bullish, you're looking for this to come out, retraced, retest that level, and then start heading up again. If we do that, you're probably going to be looking at least a bounce into the 65, 600-ish area. So I actually added a long a buy order there. And yeah, see how it goes. I've got another sell order up in here somewhere, just because I want to make sure it actually hits. I didn't want to put it right at the top of this vector candle here. I just sort of sitting in there somewhere with it. Some reason my CoinAnk isn't working. No idea why that is. I left it running on my computer last night and went to refresh it this morning and it just keeps shitting itself. So anyway, in terms of liquidity, obviously it's taken a lot of this. There is a lot of liquidity coming in down to that sort of 63,900. Fair chunk now sitting at 63,500. Yeah, but at the same time, there's a lot up there as well. So this here's 65,465. That's a pretty good level if you did get into a long down here, just to be taking a little bit of profit off the table. Just because you don't really know at this point if it's going to keep going it is definitely in a downward trend. So I'll just go out a little bit. As you can see, like compared to the liquidity that's up here, it's not a hell of a lot below. Even down into that 62, there's not much down there. So whether it even bothers, I don't know. But I would expect a reasonable bounce, potentially down into that 64,300 first, but that would be sort of swiping the lows, I would say, on be swiping these sort of lows here, just to tidy them up before it goes a bit higher. All right, so that's kind of what I'm on the lookout for. I think my next order point is in the low 63 400-ish kind of level. Let's confirm that. Yeah, 63 550 got an order at. Again, I don't want to go right where I think it's going to turn around. I don't want to catch the very bottom. I just want to make sure I get a decent buy price for that next level. So we are still just creeping into this box here. Haven't hit the 50 EMA yet. We don't have to necessarily, but because we have bounced before that before. But given that we are sort of close, well, it looks like we're probably going to close below these lows here, you would expect it to actually hit that 50 EMA. And as I said yesterday, this mid band is a pretty reasonable target. Okay. So, that's around that 63 450 mark again. All right. And stochastic momentum is definitely to the downside. BBWP is to the downside as well. Typically, you're looking for reversion type things happening there. Up here, it was to the 20 EMA. Here, it looks like it's more to that 50 EMA, potentially to the mid band of the Gaussian channel. We are also retesting the pi cycle short duration curve. So again, that long duration one is still way up there. That's and typically in a proper bull run, you don't get a proper bull run until the price gets above this level. So that's suggesting we could go to some of those bigger targets, but the overall economy is not looking that way. But nevertheless, this this pi cycle lower band is a pretty reasonable thing to expect a reversal from, or at least a retest of, given that it's so close to the 50 and the mid band of the Gaussian, potentially wicks below it, but I'd be expecting some buying demand to come through. And one of the reasons for that is just what's happened on NASDAQ and stuff today. So this was a really great level. Called it out yesterday as it looking like this was the bottom. And that's a freaking massive move on the NASDAQ. For those that follow FX Evolution, they did note that there was a lot of big dark pool transactions in this sort of area. So that's typically when it's after a big move in either direction, you're typically either taking profit or buying in. So looks like at this stage that was a big buy. It's having a bit of resistance here around the top of the Gaussian channel, the 50 EMA, 20 EMA on the daily, all that sort of stuff. But we did also have the weekly 20 in there, that it's obviously finding some support off the S&P. Oh, excuse me. The S&P didn't hit that 20 EMA. It is still in the bullish control zone as well on stochastic. BBWP is still coming down. So we may get a little bit more chop over the next couple of days through earnings and stuff. But in general, somebody has liked earnings quite a bit because, yeah, they're that's a pretty massive move on the Nasdaq in particular. 3% up. That's pretty rare, I would think. S&P 500 still done really well for the day. It's actually above that 20 EMA now on the daily, so that's a pretty big move as well. Again, suggesting we'll probably break through that bearish control zone on the S&P 500. Volatility is still quite high, so expecting a decent bounce here. Interesting that it's closing below that signal line, or it did close below that signal line. So again, that little bit of a warning sign that might see some chop, some sort of sideways movements. Probably like a potential gap fill here, but this is actually an island reversal here too. So you got a gap down, you got a gap up. It's only a small gap up, but it is a gap up, which can lead to some pretty big moves. It's actually, yeah, pretty big gap there. Sorry, yeah, the gap's actually from the close here to the wick. So island reversals can tend to lead to pretty big moves. Equal weight has not necessarily broken to new all-time highs, but it is up there, still trending up. Again, that was our indicator to suggest that this was just a mean reversion style pullback on the market, not a huge dump. That's why we weren't calling for massive bear markets or anything like a lot of people. As soon as they see a downturn, they freak out. But that's why we try and look at all these different indicators. US 2000 still trending up. It will find it hard to break these sort of levels, the IWM. But I still think that 233 is probably going to be a pretty big resistance level. Industrials is still trending up as well. XLY, XLP, again, that was signs that the market would probably turn around. We did get a turnaround on that. In general, that suggests the market is okay. Yeah, nothing really doing there. The VIX still haven't gotten up to our 20 mark, but as we said, this 800 EMA was an interesting level, given that it's kind of hit that a few times and rejected off recently. So yeah, more onwards and upwards, it would seem, for the market for the time being. This is interesting too. So skew was still crushing all through that. The fact that skew has bounced now is a good thing for potential to keep going. That was sort of the only thing I was a little bit concerned about, that we may go further, but turns out that's a pretty massive turnaround. That's literally a one-day move there. German market is still relatively strong. You'll note that all this strength is kind of contrary to what the actual overall economy is doing. And that's sort of what you would expect at the end of a cycle, for a final leg up, and it's looking more and more like our thesis is potentially going to come true in terms of decent run up. August might be a little slow, but I think September's a bit wishy-washy depending on the election. But yeah, I'd expect a run up into the end of the year, and then January's probably going to have some fireworks. Chinese market looks like it's found its support as well. What's that one? UK 100, finding some decent buying. Treasuries are jumping, which is great. I got a bit of that in my super account. High yield has jumped, yeah. So this is definitely suggesting that we're going on a decent run. High yield at least to 79.23, I would expect, but potentially quite a bit further. This is a massive range. This range has been going since December last year. Like it went into it in December last year. Looks like it was a Wyckoff accumulation. That was your freak out to the downside, and then this looks like a breakout. And I would suggest that that's an already confirmed breakout with that pullback there. So again, just proofing this out. Let's go. I reckon that's a pretty good level for that channel. If we, yeah, 69.33, pretty similar level. So that's where I would expect high yield to go. 2-year, 10 years still playing around, but still trending down. 2-year has dropped quite significantly. So the market is definitely pricing in fairly significant interest rate drops, to be honest. Like that's the actual cash rate at the moment. It's like 5.3 or something, 5.25, something like that. So we're a fair way below that. But the 10 years dropping at the same time. So yeah, read into that what you will. I'm more worried about the actual uninversion. What you want to see is this break. Nothing really happens. The market's still going up. Everyone's saying this doesn't work. This is broken. And then, after a month or 2, 3, 6 even, and potentially after a couple of uninversions and reinversions, that's when you'll start to see the market break. Copper had a good day as well. Potentially a little bit of resistance at the 200 there, but that's a really good base for it. Found that one nicely. Gold. I'd be expecting gold to hit that 2,600 pretty soon. Silver, good bounce, 200 EMA. Bottom of this sort of reasonably highly traded zone. May bounce on the way up, but if gold goes on a run, I would expect silver to follow, and silver's probably going to do higher percentage increases eventually. Bounce on oil, big bounce on oil. Looks like oil liked whatever the market's liking at the moment as well. So yeah, could go on a pretty big run here too, actually. It's pretty low on the stochastic momentum to be making a move like that, and it still hasn't broken through. Oil's potentially going to 87, thereabouts. Could go higher than that. If we get a spike on oil, like breaking out into these pretty high areas, which there is some tensions in the Middle East at the moment. Issues in Venezuela. There's a few global things going on which could potentially cause us some issues. Oil could go through that big spike, especially coming into the Northern Hemisphere winter as well. So, and again, typically you're going to get a spike and a peak in oil at about the same time the overall economy crashes. So will be interesting. Dixie's finally decided to drop, which is good. Looks like it just wanted to make it just into the bullish control zone and reject. So that's a pretty good level there, coming off low volatility as well. So yeah, this could be a pretty decent move. Probably have a pause around that 102 level, but I definitely would expect it. It's probably going to be around here somewhere. I would only be expecting a bounce around there. I think it's going to bounce and then potentially come back down. At least go to that 100 level. So Aussie dollar hopefully is doing a bit better. Yeah, looks like it's finding a low. It's good. General trend is up still. Money supply is still going up. So global liquidity is dropping. It's still in a downward trend. A little bit of a jump yesterday, but percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average is still high. Again, that was another indicator that we weren't going into a massive pullback. Mag 7 looks like it's found its support as well. Nvidia, yeah, looks like everyone was happy enough with the price there of Nvidia for the time being. It's a big buy up there. Pretty decent volume too. There wasn't a lot of volume on the sell-off actually. It's interesting. Just on this double top here too, that's actually proofed out pretty well, I think. Yeah. Maybe didn't quite hit it, but depends where you take that top level from. Okay, again, this was kind of an indicator that the market wasn't too bad. This is still within an upward trending channel. If it starts to break out of this channel, then I'll be a little bit worried, but I would certainly expect this to be moving up. ASX had a good day yesterday, so it looks like it's going to hit our target. I was talking to a business partner yesterday, and whilst I think we'll probably have a little bit of resistance here, I actually think it was somewhere around 8,600, potentially even 9,000 is a good expectation for ASX. Again, the ASX was kind of showing a good support point, showing not too much concern with the overall global economy. Bitcoin. So yeah, just back into Bitcoin. Still going to struggle, I think. We need to find a base pretty soon here, down to that 63.5-ish area. If we can find that base, then I'll be a bit more confident in it. But surprised it hasn't really gone with everything else. That's the interesting thing for me. although it didn't really buy into the whole pump thing. So the Nasdaq did pull back pretty hard towards the end, but it's going up again today in after hours. So like if you go down to the 15-minute on the Nasdaq before the close, oh no, when I looked at it, it was doing this, but it's actually recovered that already as well. So yeah, markets are looking strong, except for Bitcoin for some weird reason. Ethereum's doing what Bitcoin's doing. Yeah. Sol, it's an interesting one too. Looks like Sol did hit our target, but it has definitely rejected that top as well. Maybe the money's just flowing into the overall stock market today. People that would normally be putting money into Bitcoin have gone into stocks. Again, volatility's still dropping on this though, so it looks like we are getting ready. These are looking like healthy pullbacks before a run up. So just hope it happens sooner rather than later. I wouldn't mind one more buy-in opportunity. Oops. Potentially, if you've also got this fib level here at the 63,700 mark, yeah, I'd be surprised if we don't get at least one more down day, and then Bitcoin will potentially find its bottom, which could bring the stochastic back quite a bit as well. It'll reset the BBWP. We could get a couple of days of chop, as I've said, but generally it's looking like, unless we just get a massive flush of a heap of longs, which aren't on the books from what I can tell, it doesn't look like there's a hell of a lot of long liquidations, even when you go out to the sort of the 1 month. Yeah, there's a little bit around here. They're not massive. I'd expect that it's at 60K level. If we get to there, I'd be very surprised, but it's possible. No doubt. I mean, I'm not going to stand here and say that's not possible, just given the amount that is sitting there. That's 63. If we do hit that early part of that 63, I'd be surprised if it doesn't clean up at least down to the 62.8. So hopefully we get some rips in between, and that'd be handy just for basically getting a few more orders in. Yeah, that would be the 50% level roughly as well. Problem is, if we close below the mid band of the Gaussian, you kind of got to worry about getting all the way down to the bottom of the Gaussian as well, thereabouts. So yeah, a lot of these are still pointing bearish. What I would get worried about is if we do start to tick up on the BBWP and stochastic is still headed down hard. That would suggest we could come a little bit further down. All right, that'll do. I'll catch you later.